Can you zoom up on that paper? Namrata ma'am and Prema ma'am, and for all the audience, this is a 22-year-old girl for whom we've made this plan. So you can see that we are going to do a customization of the cares, and basically, I'm going to show you now how we are going to customize it. Can you come to this thing microscope, please? Microscope view. Shift to the microscope view, please. So if you can see, we have got a thicker part of the segment where the thickest is, and we have thinned down the segment as we go to the thinner part. So here is the conuscleral rim, which is already mounted on an artificial chamber. I'm just going to start by removing all the epithelium. So this is important. We just remove it all. Just you can just use a vexel and remove it. It's very simple, as you can see. Uh, and once we've done that, just increase the zoom, please. Okay, that's better, ma'am, right? Okay, so here we've removed all the epithelium. Just going to wash it off a bit, and now we will remove it from the artificial anterior chamber and shift it to a Teflon block. And I'll just get into focus again. Now, what we're going to do is just remove the endothelium. So just remove the moisture from this first, and then it's just basically scraping off of the endothelium. So now we've basically essentially got just the stroma and the Bowman's membrane, and we've removed all the epithelium and the endothelium. So here we are. We're just going to center it on the Teflon block now, using the hole there as a guide, and we are just going to go ahead and punch the graft now. So this is the Trefine which I'm going to use. You can zoom up a bit, Sampath, otherwise it won't be seen. So this is the Trefine, and you can see that it's got these double blades. It's a patented design. It's got double blades here, and what it does is it gives you this ring of stromal tissue with which you can go ahead and do the cares now. So this particular one is 8 and 9.5, and that's based on the particular characteristics of the patient. I'm going to go ahead and keep it here, center it, and just go ahead and punch it. So you can see it's really very simple. We have gone ahead and punched it, and just rotate the outer part to see that the punch is complete, and remove the inner bit also to see that's complete. And if someone wants to do a DALC or something else with this, or if you've stripped off a DMEC tissue, you could also use this with the rest of it. Just clean this, please. You could do a CAS with the rest of the tissue. Now what we're going to do is we are just going to mark the Bowman's layer. So that's important because then you can identify any twists or anything in this tissue. I've kept it here now, and you can see this ring of stromal tissue that we've obtained. And now we are going to do the customization. So we don't need this whole length of tissue, so I'm just going to cut off approximately what I'll need. And we have removed this part. We're going to work with this part, and here what we're going to do is we're just going to lay it on the side and flatten it out, because then that gives us the differential breadth and the thickness that comes when you lay it on its side. So we've done this. Now we move to the CAS customizer. So this is a instrument which I've designed, and Epsilon has made it for us. And basically, it helps you customize the CAS, and it's got all these optic zones marked all the way from 3 to 12, and each of these is at zero point 0.5 millimeter diameter. So we chose an optic zone diameter of 4.6. So we're going to keep it at around 4.5 and 4.6 the outer edge of it. And the customization plan is 930, 645, and 430. So that's what we are going to do. Uh, just zoom it down a little bit, Sampath, because it's too much right now. 430. So we are going to use the 4.6 optic zone, which is this one. Just drape it around it and use just a simple marker to mark it. Can you please give it to me? So I like using the opposite side or the blunt side of a blade because it gives you sharp marks. So here we are keeping it at 430, and then at 645, which is basically here. Pen, please. 645, and then we are going to go to, yeah. So now we've marked all of these. We take it out, and we are going to now keep it back on the Teflon block and just cut it. Can you give me the blade? So here is the first cut. Here's the final length of the whole segment, which is here. And this part is going to be the tapered part. So this is just basically a cut that we are going to take from here and go on to give it a broad edge taper. So you can see it was really simple. Okay, that's all it took to make the cast segment. Very, very quick and very, very rapid. And here is the segment all prepared out. Um, the advantage of this over the femtosecond, I think, in some ways is that it's extremely customizable as it is now. I just drew this out so that you can see the amount of customization that you can do. And you know that keratoconus is a very individualized disease. You can have a lot of variation even within the same subtypes, subphenotypes of keratoconus. You can have so much difference in the Kmax, the amount of cone, the area of posterior elevation, the refraction, so much of variation. So you can actually, these are just some shapes which I've drawn, but you can have, you can just, even taper from here to here, the length can be different. From here to here, it can be short, a long taper, broadish taper, narrow taper. You can have so much of exquisite customization based on the patient's particular type of topography, which I think currently femtosecond is not able to give. And also we are having different refined sizes, which again takes care of the thickness. So we can have 7.75 by 8.75 for very early keratoconus, 6.58 by moderate for moderate, 8 and 9.5 for advanced, and 5.5 by 9.5 for really advanced cones. So what that does is it allows us to vary the thickness very easily. And yeah, please play the video. Now we've actually already done the femtosecond channel creation for the patient early, because we just wanted to save some time. So yeah, just play the video, just to show that how the femtosecond channel was created with the Zeiss Visumax Smile Pro machine. And while we shift the patient, so that we can save some time, please play that. Ma'am, yes, of course, it varies a lot. CAS is, I mean, keratoconus is basically it's more of, it's not like refractive surgery where you're trying to correct for the, for the actual power. It's more of just a treatment trying to get the shape, corrected, the higher order aberrations corrected. That's what you're aiming for with this treatment. You're not trying to give the patient a refractive correction. So it's fine. You will have some variation between patients based on the biomechanical responses and based on the type of cone and all that, but all of them do improve because you're able to regularize their shape a lot. So please look straight, Papa. Nera parango. Put some parakin. So this patient, yeah, yeah, they do. Yes, in fact, we get a greater response with this, because with single segment intacts also there's a limit to how much you can go. The sizes are about 450 microns, and beyond that you can't go. Here you can go really thick because it's allogenic tissue, so you're not scared about whether you're going to end up perforating. I mean, end up with a sterile melt over time. So that fear is not there. And also you can also deal with much higher grades of keratoconus, like much more advanced cases of keratoconus. So here I'm going to be inserting this cares now. Just give me a Y, please. Yeah, ma'am. If we just took a look at the topography, we'll see that it's more thick inferiorly. I mean, it's more steep inferiorly, and it's the steepness comes down as you go superiorly in this particular patient. So for that reason, we have chosen to customize it. Please put saline now. So once I get the thicker end in, I like to just put some saline on the patient's cornea, so that till then I keep it dry. So the insertion becomes very easy. So you can see that the insertion is pretty simple. Shadi has got a beautiful technique also. He's there, I'm sure, in the audience right now, where he dehydrates the cornea. But I just go ahead and just put it in the hydrated way itself, and I don't really dehydrate it. And this goes pretty fast as well. I'm sorry, we completely forgot to mark the segments. We should have done that. Uh, yeah, but I will mark it now and show you. We are actually supposed to put the marks on the patient's cornea prior to doing this, but I think in the hurrying of the shifting and all, we did not do that. Just give me a yeah, you can, ma'am. There are a lot of variations that you can do. In fact, yeah, it went pretty easily, as you can see. It went pretty easily, and it's an additive procedure, yes. So the yes, uh, we can estimate to some extent, but not precisely. Give me a Sinsky with a mark on it. With it's not exactly precise to the amount, but yes, you can. So in very large, these were the marks which we had made in the sitting position, actually, with the patient sitting in the slit lamp. And yes, this part of it we should have actually put the marks earlier, but I will just show how it aligns now also. So 3 and 9 o'clock. And if you can see, this was our plan. And you can actually do this at the end of surgery also, and just get it to lie exactly where you want it to. 3 and 9 and 4:30 is where we wanted it to come. So you can see that this has come to uh, about 4:30, and if not, you can just adjust it further into position. And here we wanted it till I think 9:30, and here also we can get it. We've got it up to 9:30, and we can just pull it further into position. No, just the reverse Sensky, please. The other side. 9:30, and so you can just use this gauge marker to get it into position. So here it is finally, which is put. You can put some saline, please. And I like to have it go along the arc, the thinner part. The Bowman's membrane is always to the inner side, that is facing the pupil, because that's where you want the maximum effect, and that's the reason I like to mark the Bowman's membrane. Currently it looks very smudged, but if you zoom out, you'll be if you zoom in, I mean, just zoom in a bit more. You'll It's okay. Here the colors are a bit very bright and distorted on the camera, but what I see is there's a more defined line here, and it's got a little smudge, but you can avoid that by keeping the care segment a little not like soaked in saline, but a little dry while you're marking. Here it was a little wet when we were marking it. Zoom down, please. And ideally I would have put the central point and mark the 4:30, 9:30, and the 6:45 positions, but we didn't do that. But however, we can still just check on the marker, and you can see that it exactly aligns. 3 and 9 in the sitting position, 4:30, 6:30 here the taper comes, and 9:30. So this is how we do customized cares. And the other questions that you asked, ma'am, about biomechanical refraction and all, there is some variation to patient, from patient to patient, but all the patients improve hugely in their keratoconic indices, in the sense that the cornea becomes much more regularized. It becomes more the coma decreases hugely, the spherical equivalent comes down. In fact, in our study, we found, and in almost, now there's so many people who are doing cares, and Shadi and David Gunn and everyone, all of them have published a lot as well on this. We've all seen a decrease in Kmax, a decrease in the area of maximum flattening can even go up to 25, 30 diopters in very advanced cases. We also do very mild cases now. We don't do PRK extra at all. In fact, we do take very mild keratoconic cases, and we are doing with our nomogram very mild cases also, and getting huge improvement in them as well. In fact, most of the patients, when they do their advanced eye, they always want their other eye also done. And even fresh patients who have not got both operated eyes operated, we advise milder eyes also, keratoconic eyes also cares, and they do very well. The Kmax, the K1, K2, K mean, the cylinder, the coma, all these indices come down, the spherical equivalent comes down, the uncorrected and the best corrected visual acuity go up. So the patient has a huge amount of improvement. So yeah, sometimes you can have overcorrections, undercorrections. That's easy to adjust, because all you have to do is an adjustment. If it's an overcorrection, you can pull it out, and we have done it also, where we pull it out and then trim the segment accordingly, and then put it back in again. Under correction, you might need to cut a new segment, so you would need a new cornea for that if you want to change the shape of segment or something like that. Sometimes you might want to what do you say, rotate it a bit, so that you get it into the axis correctly if you feel that it's not in the correct axis. Other complications that can happen sometimes are rejection, which is not of concern. I have not seen it really, but Jack Parker had a case. It's not of much concern anyway, because it's out of the visual axis, and even if the graph does opacify, it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect the patient in any way visually, because it's out of the visual axis. And also, anyway, the incidence of rejection is very low, because it's completely within the stroma from all sides. It's away from vascularization, away from the limbus. There are no sutures to incite vascularization. It's something which is a very small amount of tissue, not exposed to the tears, not exposed to the aqueous. So because of all these reasons, the risk of rejection itself is very low. So intacts have to be perforce put quite deep, because you want to decrease the risk of melting. But remember, when you put it so deep, there have also been reports of ICRS, synthetic ICRS, intruding into the anterior chamber and causing acute hydrops. So it's not necessary that just because you put it deep, it became safe, because then it could go into the other direction as well. Here I generally put it at 50% of stromal depth, which is about I take the stroma alone and then keep it at 50% of that, and that gives us great results. But I don't go below 280. I go to a maximum depth of 280 and not that. So by that, you can see how much more superficial cares is placed. So this young girl, 20-year-old girl, we are going to cross-link her immediately, right now itself, and that's how we do most of our patients. We do the cares and immediately follow up with cross-linking. Because we don't want them to progress, we don't want them to come into the OT another day. But there are others who are doing the cares and then waiting for some time and doing the cross-linking later at a subsequent session. That could also be done. Ideally, cares should be done prior to cross-linking, so that you get the full benefit of cares, and not the reverse way. But we've also done some patients who've come to us post cross linking. Also, we do cares, and we get a quite a good effect in them. Also, it's not that we don't get an effect. In which sense, ma'am? The epithelium does have an epithelial remodeling happening over time. So what happens is, and Shadi's done a study on it also, where that epithelium has remodeled. So what happens is, because CARES is lifting up the tissue in the mid periphery, there's some amount of epithelial remodeling that happens towards the center, and that helps you in further regularization. At about 1 month, the amount of epithelial remodeling is maximum. So to finally know where the patient stands, it takes you about 1 month. For cross-linking, ma'am, what I do is if it's more than 320 microns, I go for 320 to 400, I go for contact lens assisted cross-linking. This is stromal thickness. 450 and above with epithelium, that is, we go for any conventional cross-linking. You could do anything. We generally use accelerated cross-linking. We do it for 10 milliwatts per centimeter square for 9 minutes. 9 minutes. We do the reverse, 10 for 9 minutes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. Thank you so much, ma'am.